Well, as the world knows by now, the 70-year reign of Queen Elizabeth II came to an end yesterday with her death.
She was 96 years old, taking the throne in 1952, making her the longest reigning monarch in United Kingdom history.
Earlier today, we spoke with UW Assistant Professor Allison Prasch, an expert on foreign policy and political communication. We asked her how the British Empire changed during the Queen's reign.
I mean, the change is monumental over the last 70 years. If you think about when Queen Elizabeth II became the monarch, she was in Kenya, which was at that point a British colony. And now we're looking 70 years later at a massive shrinking of the British Empire and really a decreasing of Britain's role on the global stage. And so when you think about her significance as a global figure, I would argue that she has only increased in her prominence, but the empire itself has shrunk during her tenure.
Where will the country go now?
I think that's the question that both the monarchy and the British people are going to have to confront. If you look at the statements by the new king today, he was talking about wanting to carry on his mother's legacy, but also wanting to continue to lead Britain into a new era of, talking about bringing some of the people on the margins to the center of the story. And so I think there's going to be this public mourning period where people are really celebrating the life of Queen Elizabeth, but then also thinking about how they can take her example, her courage, her candor, her grace, her wit into the future.
Is the monarchy still relevant?
That is the question. I would argue that it is. One of the things that I think is fascinating for U.S. audiences as we think about the monarchy is that unlike our president, for example, who we elect every 4 years, the monarchy remains for life. And there are good things and bad things about that. But one of the things I think that Queen Elizabeth's life demonstrates to us is this enduring, quiet confidence and this sense of duty to her country that's not subject to the whims of the electorate, and also allows a political figure in her position to live out a life of service. Now, that also necessitates our hope that that individual is wanting to live out that life of service. So I think the way that Queen Elizabeth demonstrated the monarchy and the way that she enacted it, it does make it relevant, but it's also a question I think that the British people are going to have to confront.
Could you talk about her style as and her individual style as a public spokesperson?
This is one of the things that I admire most about her. You know, if you look at her first public statements, that we would go back to 1940, when she delivered a radio address with her sister from Windsor Castle during World War II, where they had been evacuated to Windsor Castle. And they delivered this radio address specifically addressed to British children all over the world who had been evacuated. And she and her sister talked about, we've been evacuated from London to Windsor Castle. And so she was drawing on these shared experiences and identifying with her audience. Now, some might say, she's living this life of privilege in a castle. She's not being put on some rail car to live with a family of strangers, and that's true. But she really often sought to identify with her audience, meeting them where they were. And you see that towards the end of her life. In April 2020, she delivers this remarkable televised address to the nation at the height of the pandemic in Great Britain, where she is praising people for deciding to not leave their homes, to quarantine, to keep each other safe. And she reminds her audience back of that 1940 broadcast and essentially says, we need to demonstrate the same spirit of patriotism, of a shared sense of duty to one another. So from both the beginning to the end of her life, there is this this drawing on themes of identification and this duty and patriotism and love of country that she really encouraged from the British people.
Yeah, she was quite remarkable, and she served her country so well for 70 years. It's remarkable. It's not an end of an era, I think it's the end of an age.
It is, the Elizabethan age, right? So now we just have to see everything. All eyes are now going to be on King Charles III.
Absolutely. Allison, thanks for being with us today. Great insights.
Thanks for having me.
And the funeral will probably be in about 10 days or so.
Yeah, so unless they change those plans, but we'll hear more.
Yeah, big changes coming.